absolutely. Prince Louis making his debut on the balcony, that's a very lovely sight. Duchess of Cambridge just holding him close, and very sweet little outfit, which looks very reminiscent.
The moment the truth hit the royal household, the future king of Britain didn't react like a monarch in waiting. He reacted like a terrified big brother watching his little brother step into a storm no child should ever face. Behind palace gates, beyond the polished smiles and carefully staged photographs, a private conversation shattered the illusion of royal invincibility, and at the center of it all stood an 11-year-old boy fighting back tears he didn't even know he was allowed to shed. We all saw the official language, the careful wording, the dignified silence. But what unfolded inside those palace walls was raw, unfiltered, and deeply human. Prince Louis, the youngest child of Prince William and Catherine, received a diagnosis, not immediately life-threatening, but serious enough to change the rhythm of daily life forever. And while the world speculated, whispered, and theorized, something far more powerful was happening quietly in the family's living room. This wasn't just a headline. This wasn't palace drama. This was a 6-year-old boy whose life suddenly involved appointments, specialists, and conversations no child fully understands. And it was an 11-year-old future king realizing that no crown, no title, no royal protection can shield someone you love from medical reality. Sources close to the situation described the diagnosis as manageable but ongoing, something requiring attention, structure, and long-term care. That word, manageable, sounds comforting on paper. But when you're a parent hearing it for the first time, when you're a sibling sitting at the table trying to process what it means, it feels heavy. It feels permanent. Prince William and Catherine noticed differences first, subtle things, developmental quirks, behavioral shifts. At first, like any loving parents, they brush them aside as normal variations. Every child grows differently. Every milestone has its own timeline. But instincts don't lie. Observations turned into consultations. Consultations turned into testing. And testing turned into answers that were not catastrophic, but not easy either. The palace confirmed that Prince Louis is receiving care for a condition requiring ongoing management, while requesting privacy. And that's where the public statement ends. But the real story begins in a quiet family meeting, a moment that reportedly left even seasoned palace staff shaken. William and Catherine chose honesty. They didn't want George and Charlotte overhearing fragments from aides or piecing together tension from whispers in hallways. They gathered their children, they sat down, and they told them. George listened, quiet, focused, serious beyond his years. He asked questions, thoughtful, specific questions. What does this mean? Will Louis be okay? Is he going to get worse? What can I do? That's when the walls came down. The composed, carefully raised air, the boy trained to wave without fidgeting and smile without revealing too much, broke. He cried, not dramatically, not loudly, but openly. And it surprised even his parents, because George doesn't often let himself unravel. He's always been described as thoughtful and serious, carrying a weight he only partially understands. Born third in line, and now second, his life has never been ordinary. He attends school, plays sports, tries to blend in, but he knows who he is. He knows what's expected. But in that moment, none of that mattered. He wasn't the future king. He was a big brother, terrified of losing control over something he couldn't fix. He reportedly asked if there was anything he could do to make Louis better. And that question alone tells you everything about who he's becoming. Because here's the truth, no royal briefing will ever state outright, helplessness is one of the hardest emotions for a child to process, especially a child raised with responsibilities stitched into his identity. George has always protected his siblings, especially Louis. The 5-year age gap never weakened their bond. If anything, it strengthened it. He included Louis in games. He showed patience. He watched over him with a quiet sense of duty. And suddenly there was something he couldn't guard against. Staff described what happened next as unforgettable. William pulled George close. Catherine held Louis. Charlotte moved gently between them, absorbing the tension in her own way. In those minutes, the monarchy disappeared. Titles vanished. It was just a family clinging to each other while reality settled in. In the days that followed, George changed. Not dramatically, not rebelliously, but noticeably. He checked on Louis constantly, asked if he was comfortable, played whatever game Louis wanted, even if it wasn't his favorite. Observers described him taking on a caretaker role, not forced, not assigned, but instinctive. And that's where the emotional weight deepens. Because while this kind of devotion is beautiful, it's also heavy for an 11-year-old. William and Catherine are reportedly careful not to let George feel solely responsible. They've emphasized that Louis is still Louis. His condition does not define him. They've stressed stress that this is a family challenge, not a burden placed on one pair of small shoulders. They've encouraged open conversations about fear, sadness, confusion, all of it. And they've reassured the children that Louis will receive the best care available. That's parenting under pressure most of us will never understand, because this isn't happening in privacy alone. Catherine herself has faced health struggles over the past year, navigating medical scrutiny in public view. King Charles is aging. Responsibilities are increasing. The family dynamic has already been strained by ongoing tensions with Prince Harry and Meghan. And now this it would be easy for cracks to show, but insiders describe unity instead. Schedules have shifted. Engagements quietly reduced. School runs, bedtimes, ordinary routines, they've become sacred. Catherine, still recovering, has made Louis her top priority. William has carved out more family time despite growing royal duties. And here's what makes this story bigger than a diagnosis. George is watching. He's absorbing every response, every conversation, every choice his parents make. He's learning that vulnerability is not weakness. He's seeing that leadership includes emotional honesty. He's understanding that strength sometimes looks like sitting on the floor with your siblings and admitting you're scared. For decades, the monarchy thrived on emotional distance, the stiff upper lip, the image of unshakable composure. But this generation is different. William has openly supported mental health initiatives. Catherine has addressed public scrutiny directly. And now, through George's tears, we're witnessing a shift that could redefine what a future king looks like. A king shaped by empathy. A king who remembers what it felt like to cry because his little brother was hurting. A king who understands that compassion isn't political, it's personal. Louis' condition may require new routines, appointments, therapies, adjustments. Life inside the palace will quietly rearrange itself. George will continue learning how to support without sacrificing his own childhood. Charlotte will navigate it in her own steady way. But one thing is undeniable. This moment has already changed them. The love between these siblings, that instinctive, protective bond, has deepened. And while no family chooses this path, sometimes adversity reveals character faster than comfort ever could. Behind the gates, beyond the headlines, an 11-year-old boy is learning that even future kings can cry, and that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is hold your brother's hand and refuse to let go. And here's where the story turns from heartbreaking to transformative, because what happened inside that family after the tears dried may shape the monarchy more than any coronation ever could. In the quiet days that followed the diagnosis, the palace atmosphere reportedly shifted, not in panic, not in chaos, but in focus. The Cambridge household tightened its circle. Fewer distractions, fewer external demands, more dinners together, more conversations without phones or aides hovering nearby. This wasn't about retreating from duty, it was about recalibrating priorities. Louis' condition requires ongoing management. That means appointments, specialists, structured routines, adjustments that slowly become permanent fixtures in family life. What used to be spontaneous may now require planning. What once seemed minor may now be monitored closely. And in that shift, George is witnessing something profound. Leadership under pressure begins at home. Because while the world speculates, the family adapts. Catherine, already tested by her own health battles in recent months, approaches this moment with a hard-earned understanding of public scrutiny. She knows what it feels like to have strangers dissect your medical reality. She knows the weight of speculation, and that experience has sharpened her resolve to protect Louis fiercely. The palace confirmed only what was necessary, that he has a diagnosed condition being managed, and nothing more. No labels, no detailed explanations, no invitations for debate. Traditional media, for the most part, have respected that line. But social platforms have not been so disciplined. Theories spiral. Armchair experts emerge overnight. Anonymous accounts claim insider knowledge. And through it all, George is old enough to understand that his brother's name is trending for reasons no child should endure. That reality alone could harden a young heart, but instead, something different is happening. George has reportedly become even more protective in public settings. Subtle gestures, standing slightly closer, watching Louis more carefully, adjusting his pace so his younger brother never feels left behind. It's not theatrical, it's instinctive, and it's deeply telling. At 11 years old, he understands powerlessness, and he hates it. He cannot rewrite a diagnosis, he cannot erase uncertainty, but he can sit beside Louis during quiet moments. He can include him in games. He can choose patience over frustration, and that choice, repeated daily, is shaping him in ways no formal royal training ever could. William and Catherine are reportedly mindful of one delicate balance, ensuring George does not internalize responsibility beyond his years. They've made it clear that being a supportive brother does not mean becoming a substitute guardian. He is allowed to be a child, allowed to laugh, allowed to step away from worry, and that reassurance matters, because children who love deeply sometimes overcompensate. Meanwhile, Charlotte processes things differently, steady, observant, continuing to treat Louis normally while quietly adapting to what's changed. Her resilience adds adds another layer of strength to the sibling dynamic. This isn't a story about one emotional reaction, it's about a family recalibrating together. What makes this moment so significant is not the diagnosis itself, but the response. The royal family of previous generations often projected invulnerability. Illness was hidden, emotions were subdued, the institution came first. But here, we see something evolving. We see parents choosing transparency within their household. We see a future king allowed to cry without being told to be strong in silence. We see vulnerability acknowledged instead of buried. And that shift could ripple far beyond palace walls. Because George is not just learning about medicine, he's learning about empathy. He's discovering that leadership sometimes means sitting in discomfort rather than pretending it doesn't exist. He's seeing firsthand that compassion isn't weakness, it's authority refined. Imagine the long-term impact of this experience. Years from now, when George stands before the nation as king, he will not only remember statecraft lessons or constitutional procedures, he will remember the night his parents sat him down and trusted him with difficult truth. He will remember how it felt to ask, will he be okay? He will remember crying and being held instead of corrected. Those memories create a different kind of monarch. Louis's condition, while manageable, will continue to shape daily life. New routines will become normal. Therapy sessions will blend into weekly schedules. Medical discussions will coexist with school events and public appearances. The family's calendar will quietly reflect this ongoing reality, even if official statements remain minimal. Public engagements may remain slightly reduced for a time. When appearances do happen, they will carry deeper context, resilience layered beneath formality. The public may see smiles, but behind those smiles is a family that has sat through difficult conversations and emerged closer. And here's the quiet truth. Adversity can fracture families or fuse them. Sources describe unity, not division. Presence, not avoidance. Engagement, not denial, not before cameras, but beside his little brother. And in that private, unguarded reaction, we may have just glimpsed the most human chapter of the monarchy's next era.